Welcome to Quest for Peace, a podcast that explores how we can journey towards inner tranquility in the midst of a chaotic world. In an era filled with uncertainty, conflicts, and global challenges, our quest for peace becomes more vital than ever. Together, let's discover how we can create more peace within ourselves, and by doing so, how we can contribute to a more peaceful world. Hello, friends, and welcome to Quest for Peace. I am Saju Vaswani, your host. Today's guest is a facilitator of Family Constellations, as well as a health and life coach. I'd like to give a big welcome to Karla Sanchez. Welcome, Karla, to my show.
Thank you, Saju. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great, thank you. Let's get started getting to know you first. I'd love for you to let the audience know what you do. And I know you have a lot of modalities. Would you like to tell everyone all the things that you have learned?
Sure, absolutely. The one that I practice or utilize the most is Family Constellations, which is a philosophy. Some people call it a therapy, some people call it a methodology or a tool. To me, they all work. It's kind of like God, universe, source. You can call it whichever you prefer, whichever one feels best for each individual. In my personal experience, it does serve as all of the above. It serves as therapy, it serves as a tool, methodology, and as a philosophy. So that's the main one I use. So I'll focus on that one. And then the other ones that I have learned, like you mentioned, it's so many of them, and they kind of help me through the main one that is Family Constellations. So, such things as angel healing, Reiki healing, um, Edina, which is another medicine from the stars. Not many people know about that one, and numerology, and so forth and so on. So, I could go on and on and on. But again, let's focus on Family Constellations, which is my preferred method or the foundation, and then everything else is an additional tool from that. Family Constellations is a philosophy. It started with Bert Hellinger. He's a German. He was originally a priest that developed this philosophy and this method through, again, a combination of what he became aware of and learned. So there's a lot of information on him. There's a lot of information on Family Constellations currently, especially more on the Spanish speaking community, and it has evolved into many things. So originally, it's a philosophy that helps us find the root cause of a conflict or a situation that I'm experiencing currently. It's based off on the philosophy that everything that happens in our generational system and our family system is passed down generation after generation, meaning emotions, beliefs, loyalties, behavioral patterns. So not only do we pass on illnesses and disease, but we also pass down emotions, again, beliefs, behavioral patterns. So Family Constellations focuses on those.
That's huge because people don't know this, and a lot of people don't know what family constellation is and how it can help. And when you're talking about cellular, we pass on our DNA, and we have all the diseases that our forefathers or anyone had. It can be passed on, but behavioral as well is something that blows your mind because it's some you never think that that's true. And having listened to you before, that really was the one point. And when I'm telling everybody about family constellations, most of them say, what's that? And when I explain it, and they're like, oh my goodness. So yeah, that's a very powerful tool to have to help us through our lives, because life is right now, it's very, very, so much happening. out there, and we're trying to find peace in all of this, and we have to think of different modalities that can help us, and this is definitely one very powerful one. How long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this for about 5 years. I do group sessions and individual sessions.
Wonderful. So tell us more. Exactly how does this work? How does it help? How does it change us ourselves? How do we change with this?
So I'm gonna put in as simple terms as I can put it. There is a lot of scientific proof or research behind it that may or may not be out in the open yet. But if you're very technical and if you're very scientific cited, let's say, you can look into epigenetics and you can look into the morphogenetic field. Basically is energy. We're working with energy. We're releasing energy. We're moving energy through. We're working with emotions that get stuck in the body, emotions that get stuck in the field. We're working with order within the family. And so we're working the way we work with this philosophy of family constellations is in multiple ways. A lot of people today do family constellations with horses, with water,
Mm.
with little Legos, with uh, meditations. I mean, there's a lot of resources. The way I work with them currently mostly is through group representations. So we have a group, it can be from 5 to 12 to 30 people. And the people within that group represent the energy of people within the family system of the client that's going to have its constellation or its situation work through the group, or energies of a home, a business, a career, life, grief, emotions. Like, so basically, the people within that group represent those people and emotions and energy. Again, I mentioned this because it can be somebody can represent a home, somebody can represent a business, somebody can represent an emotion, somebody can represent beliefs and ideas. So, because again, everything is energy. So we work with energy and we move or help that energy move through so that it can flow in harmony.
Can you give us an example, for instance, if somebody were to come to you for what area of problems, and how would you work with them?
Yes. So, like everyone, we all have multiple situations that we would like to improve in our lives. So, typically, somebody comes either with the very clear idea of what is the conflict that they want to work on or that they want to improve on, which is the ideal. And many times the client comes with having so much going on at the same time that they don't know where to start. So ideally, I ground the client so that in case they don't know where they want to start, and the option two is that the field can show them, like the field that we're going to work with, the morphogenetic field that we're going to work with, can show us what would be the starting point for that soul. We work at a soul level too. I constantly guide the participants and the client to bring down the energy from our headspace into our heart. That way we can be working again from a soul level. And it's very easy. That's my job. That's my job to guide and hold that space for the participants and for the clients. It's very easy if we allow it to. Many times we are scared and and it's very normal. You're If I tell you that you're going to represent somebody's mother that you've never met, you could potentially freak out and be like, "What do you mean? What do I do? Like, where do I start?" And pretty much all we have to do is let go of that energy within our head, all those thoughts and beliefs, and just fill into our heart. And then the energy will do its work. So a client comes in, a client has the topic or doesn't have the topic, we can work through that. And let's say the client wants to improve the relationship with one of their siblings or one of their kids or partner. I mean, you name it. We can work anything that is currently a conflict can be worked through or handled or managed through a family constellation work.
Mm.
So again, the client has its topic. They want to improve the relationship with one of their parents. Maybe they've never met their father or their mother or their biological parents. That's the beauty of this work, that we can work with the energy of the biological parents, whether they were present or not. So they pick the topic, and then I ask the client to choose from that group that we're working with. I ask the client to choose people who are going to represent the components of that work. So if we're working with mother, I'll ask the client to choose somebody to represent the client and somebody to represent the mother or the father or the husband or the child or the sibling. And we start from there. And then as the people who are there to participate and represent start standing up with the intention to allow that energy to flow, the the field starts providing information about the actual situation, of the underlying situation. Because normally we create so many stories and beliefs in our head based on our experience and our pain and our emotions that sometimes it's very hard to see what is the underlying or the root cause of that situation. So that's what the work of the family constellation allows you to see, the actual root cause on a deeper level, on a soul level, on a spirit level. And then we work through that situation. We make movements, we walk around the room, we have healing phrases. I guide the participants and the client to say certain phrases that allow us to move through that energy that's been stuck for a while, through not only the client's experience, but through the parents, the grandparents, and many, many generations before them. So it's a beautiful work. At least I'm very much in love with it because, again, it's very gentle and it's very compassionate. It's very empathic. Through this work, I can truly feel the release of judgment. There's no judgment even in the worst situations, which I can understand that that's not always easy for everybody. But again, I think the work allows us to do this in a very loving and gentle way for everyone who needs it
It's
and is
beautiful.
ready to receive it.
Awesome. So I didn't know that. Okay, I thought the client herself, himself or herself, will be the one there with the representation of maybe the mother, but you're saying both are going to be represented. So the client herself is not going to be participating.
Yes.
It's just the two parties will rely on what comes through, the energy that comes through,
Yes.
and they will. I see.
Yes, because many times, and again, it works in different ways. It's again, everything is subject to change basically. But yes, the intention when doing the group, you want the client to just be observing what a different image of what he or she
Mhm.
had before. If we represent ourselves, all of our beliefs and ideas and perceptions and stories are going to be in the way.
Right.
So when you allow somebody to do that, it goes on a deeper level. Now, many times I do bring in the client into the constellation when it's maybe a client that had a loss in the family and didn't get to say goodbye. Because let's say there's a parent that passed away and that parent is being represented right there. The energy is very strong, and the client can actually feel the presence of, their loved one that is no longer in this plane. The client can feel it through the constellation. So a beautiful gift for the client is to be able to embrace that person representing that loved one. So that's very, very powerful. So sometimes there are situations in which I will, at a certain point within the constellation, where I feel it's okay for the client, I will bring the client, or I'll ask them, do you want to give that hug? Do you want to receive that hug from your father, your mother, your loved one that passed away, or even your father that was never, physically in your life or was never there for you, or even the mother that, maybe she had her emotional wounds and was never able to be a loving mother. Through
Mm,
this work, the energy moves, and the the person representing the mother may be able to give that hug on light. But again, it's on a soul level, it's on a deeper level. So you might not be able to receive it from your conscious mother right now, but on a soul level, again, there's always love. There's just too much pain too.
mm.
So sometimes we do bring in or I do bring in the client to participate in that work. And the other aspect of that, when it's an individual session. So when it's an individual session, I do most of the representation. And at some point, again, I will allow the client to do some of its work. When I'm doing the individual session, I'm going to use the word channeling most of the information. So I receive a lot of information and I know exactly how to guide the client through that work. And we dive a little deeper when it's an individual session because we have a whole hour just exclusively for that person. And the client gets a little more comfortable as well on opening up about their wounds and their feelings and their emotions, unlike they do in a group session sometimes.
So, do you use any tools? You had mentioned that you use little Legos or teddy bears.
Yes, depending on the client. So I have dolls. I call them my employees. I have dolls that I work with, and then again, every single individual session is different. I'm called do different things that I've never done before, and I do have the little Legos because that's part of what I learned through my certification. But I probably use the little Legos 10% depending on the what the client needs, depending on what I'm feeling called that client needs, or if the client is I've had clients that are 80, 90 years old. In that case, it worked because they're more like a child. Sometimes they can't move a lot.
Mm.
So in that case, the the little Legos work great for those types of clients.
So, it's never too late. You can do it at any age.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up because when we do this kind of work, Saju, we're not only doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for the ones that came before us and for the ones that are coming after us. So basically, we can do a lot of healing or releasing for our children and for our grandchildren. So through it's like that pebble that you throw on the water, how it
Mhm.
creates that ripple effect. To me, that's what family constellation does for the family system. So yes, absolutely. I mean, only God knows how many generations are being healed when one is brave enough to do the work.
Well, exactly. From what I have learned from my guru, it's 7 generations ahead of you and 7 generations behind you. It changes everything. And that's how you basically, when people look outside, to me, you're looking outside for something to help you, or blaming what's going on in the world. But what's the most important thing is to work on yourself so that you can change and you can ripple out that love and that peace that you have acquired within yourself through all this work. And then with your work, you affect your kids and your grandkids and so on. So, I mean, it is very, very important to work on ourselves. And family constellations is one of, the most important tools. There's so many out there, but this is another road. I've done lots. So, and family constellation is the only thing I have not really worked on, which I'm going to be working on very soon with you, of course. And also, when we spoke the last time, we spoke about different things. For instance, maybe you can explain. For instance, you were talking about when we have to acknowledge everyone in our family, and a lot of times people who've had miscarriages or any kind of things like that, that we have to also include them as part of our family. Can you explain more about that, please?
Yes. So there are three pillars within the family constellation, like the foundations, or the three pillars to hold that foundation. And one of them is exclusion or inclusion, like including everyone who belongs in the family system. And many times we're not even aware of people that are important or that belong within the family system. So naturally, what the family system is going to do, it's going to find, or that energy of the family system is going to find a way to bring them back. So nobody can be excluded from the family system as one of those three pillars. And that means babies that didn't come, such as abortions or miscarriages, it makes no difference. It means the same thing within the energy of that being. Family members that maybe we don't talk about because they did something that we would call quote unquote bad. Somebody that committed a crime, somebody that harmed the family or somebody in some way. And we, because of shame or fear or pain or judgment, we don't talk about those people. Those are important people to include back into our family, because what happens is when we exclude a certain family member by not acknowledging him or her or not talking about that family member, somebody else within that family system is going to bring him into the light by mimicking or doing or carrying out that same situation that excluded one did. So, for example, if somebody was an alcoholic and we don't want to talk about that alcoholic because, it brings a lot of emotions and pain and shame and etc., or committed a crime and we don't want to talk about that. Somebody in the family system is going to repeat that story. It's going to repeat that pattern. And the reason for that, it's in order to shed light into that member, in order to bring him back. That's the importance of recognizing, giving them their place, acknowledging those family members.
So what happens then, for instance, alcoholic, once you start giving them the attention and putting them, bringing them back into the family, does the situation with the other person who was mimicking them change for them?
Yes. Basically, what you resist persists. So, something such as being an alcoholic or alcoholism, we typically tend to judge it, to reject it. Basically, that's the two primary, have a lot of opinions about that situation and judgment and fear and pain. So, by accepting it, by seeing it, by honoring that person's story and destiny within their own journey, we are healing that. Instead of resisting it, we're integrating it. And we in family constellations, another thing that Verhellinger said a lot in reference to that was that we should be thankful to those that are carrying those stories and those burdens, because thanks to the fact that they are, we are not. So it's like, in a way, they sacrifice themselves for the family system by taking those hard journeys, by walking those hard journeys for the whole family system. So again, honoring them, giving them a place in our heart. I understand that sometimes that's easier said than done because, again, there's a lot of pain through those processes. And that's what family constellations, or that's what the work of family constellation does. It helps do that.
That's amazing. So amazing. So, for instance, how about if a parents don't get along with the child and they disown them? How does that, what happens then in the family system? Have you come across something like that?
Yes. So another one of the pillars is hierarchy. So one of my favorite phrases from Bert Hellinger was order first, then love. And by what he meant by that was we need order. We need everybody to take their own place in the family system, and then love will flow. But we can't love, I mean, we do it all the time. But when we love from a place that doesn't belong to us, that's where conflict within the family system comes. What do I mean by that? Hierarchy. I mentioned hierarchy. So there's a hierarchy, there's an order to how what our place is. I am my grandparents' granddaughter, I am my parents' daughter, I am my siblings' sister, I am my children's mother, I am my partner's partner, and that's my place. I am very aware of what my place is, but what many times happens, because this is how life was presented to us, is that we take places that don't belong to us. So, a father passes away or leaves, whatever the situation is, and one of the siblings has to play that role. So one of the siblings tends to take that place when there's an absent parent. And in that scenario, while the other siblings are unhappy because there's somebody taking their parent space that is not a parent, in this case, a sibling, or if that was my case and I took a place that didn't belong to me, I am going to have a harder time setting clear boundaries and limits in the outside world because I'm taking a place that doesn't belong to me within my family of origin. So, in consequence, I do the same in the outside world. If I'm used to being my sibling's mother, because again, that's the situation that presented itself while growing up, I, it's very normal for me to want to be taking care of everybody outside. And it's very normal for me to have conflicts with my partner because, again, I'm trying to take care of everybody from a place that doesn't belong to me. Or it's very normal to have conflicts with my parents because there's an unconscious love that it's not in order that makes me believe that I have to take care of my parents or that they're doing it wrong. If I judge my parents, and again, we've all been through this, a lot of us have been through this in one shape or form. But if I'm in a place where I'm judging my parents, I'm not in my place because of that hierarchy. That's not my place. From the Family Constellations philosophy, our parents gave us life, and that's more than enough. Everything else that they did on top of that, it's kind of like an extra. And again, it might be a hard pill to swallow, especially when there's a lot of pain, because we have so many expectations of how parents should be. What Family Constellations helps us and guides us through is remembering that they were doing the best they could with the tools that they had, with the information they had, with the story they had. So back on the disowning the children, yes, those are very strong words to use by a parent. What we have to understand is that there was a lot of pain behind that, and that so many things and so many places have moved, not just within you and your parents, but your parents with our grandparents and so many generations behind. So there's so much disharmony and there's lack of order. And that's why conflicts arise. And then that's why there's pain and hurt, because maybe the parent is expecting the child to do something that they wanted them to be or do, and the child is failing to do that or meeting their parents' expectations, and that could potentially cause such conflict of you're not doing it like I'm telling you to do it, or you're not doing like you're supposed to do it as our family has done it generation after generation. That's typically what we call the black sheep in family constellation, the one that wants to do it different than the whole family has done it.
Awesome. So I want to go back to what you said about parents, that they gave you birth and that's enough. I mean, is it not the responsibility of the parents to also raise the children in a certain way?
Yes, absolutely.
Isn't that what maybe some kids judge, saying, "Hey, you didn't do a good job, and you didn't look after me, and you only cared about yourself." Those kind of things. I'm sure all that shows up.
Yes, it does. Absolutely, it does show up. But and again, the what Family Constellations says is they were doing the best they could.
Mm,
It's basically, and when I've had, I don't do family constellations for children. That's another thing. I don't do family constellations for anyone that is underage, so 18 and below. And I'd rather work with 21 and up, honestly. Why? Because their consciousness is not ready to
I see.
absorb so many things.
Mm,
But when I work with as a coach or as a therapist with children or teenagers, I tell them, you know, if your parents had two colors, black and white, that's all they know how to give you. They're going to show you how to paint with black and white. You may come with a different consciousness and with a different awareness and want to go out and look to see and find out if there's other colors. But we come from generations that had another philosophy, that had another other ideas, that went through so many things that we have no, we've not been through such through certain things that our ancestors went through. So they did the best they could with the colors that they had, and that's what they passed on to us. So going back to they gave us life and that was more than enough. Once we become adults, we are the ones responsible for healing our inner child. Once we become adults, we are in charge, basically. So we can spend years and years, because yes, I've worked with a lot of very adult people that are still in that victimhood and in that complaint mode. It doesn't get us anywhere. Once we
no,
are adults, we are in charge. That's the other reason why kids don't need to come to a family constellation. They are not the ones in charge. Once you're when you're a parent, you're still in charge. You can still do so much work for your children because all children are doing through their conflicts is reflecting back to the parents situations that are going on with the parents or with the grandparents or with the family system. So I understand that saying the parents gave us life and that's more than enough. Now you should be thankful for that. I understand how that could be not the easiest to integrate, but through the work you kind of start understanding, you start having compassion and broadening your understanding and your perspective. Sometimes clients represent their own parents, and it literally is like stepping into their shoes because you're
mhm,
stepping into their energy. Or when you're observing them in the constellation through the person who's representing, and you're observing and feeling their enormous pain, which you may not even understand exactly what happened to them, but you're feeling their pain. Your whole perspective and understanding of them changes because you remember, wait a minute, they were children too, and so many things have happened to them that I have no idea, that maybe they've never talked about. There's so much pain that we have no understanding of. And again, they are who they are because they had the parents that they had, and our grandparents are who they are because they had the parents that they had. And again, it's passed on generation after generation. So today, especially like you were mentioning, the world is changing. Everything is moving us towards a new consciousness. And I believe that it's our responsibility to make that change. We have tools and we have information available to us that was not available before.
that's correct. Just going back to what you said about, we do better when we know better, or when we know better, we do better. It takes me back to, my time with my kids. And now that I know so much, I look back and said, oh my God, I messed my kids up. you know? So, but again, the concept of forgiveness comes in here when you think about your even forgiveness for yourself of how
Mhm.
you feel you could have done better, but you didn't know better. This is what you knew, and you did the best you could. I mean, looking back, I know my heart was, yes, I got to do this for my kids. I'm doing it with love, and now thinking back, maybe I could have done things a little differently. But it's still never too late, is it? I mean, I can still work on me, and it'll help my kids clear up a
Absolutely.
lot of stuff. So, can you talk about a little bit more about how important forgiveness is?
So through again, everything I'm saying is through the philosophy of family constellations. Other modalities and other concepts are different. And I have personally worked on forgiveness for myself and others through various sources. In the philosophy of family constellations, especially when it's from child to parent, we don't use forgiveness very much. In Spanish, there's a word that is different than forgiveness that you could translate to I'm sorry, but it if you literally translate it is lo siento, which means I feel it. So that's the word I feel. Like I feel it. Like I feel the fact that you went through that. It is like an apology, but it's not in Spanish. I'm sorry in literal words is perdóname. So perdóname and lo siento are two different terms that are used very similarly. And in English, there's only I'm sorry. So it's a little complicated to again to translate. But the point that I want to make is that in family constellation, the child doesn't expect the parent to ask for forgiveness because again of the hierarchy, the parent did the best they could with the information. He can say, lo siento, or I feel it, like I feel that I hurt you, and I'm sorry about that, but you don't ask for forgiveness as in please forgive me. Does that make sense? It's a little complicated because of the language and the word usage of it. Bert Hellinger used to say that when you ask somebody to forgive you, you're giving them the power. So, or you're you're acting as if you're better than someone when you say I forgive you, like as if you're more than somebody. Instead of saying, you know, I'm sorry in the sense of I'm sorry I did the best I could. Like lo siento would fall into that, like, but not I'm sorry as in or I'm better than you or you're better than I am. I don't know. That's a hard one to translate into the English language.
I understand what you're saying. It's bringing in the ego when you say forgive me, and like you said, you're giving your power up to the other person instead of saying, hey, I'm sorry, I did the best I could. I hope you can understand. It was not my intention. So that's different than saying, please forgive me. And like you said, the other person will have the upper hand and say, well, no, I don't forgive you. Or yes, I forgive you. And it becomes an egotistical
Yes, exactly
concept.
that. Yes,
Okay.
you explained it beautifully.
Thank you. When we spoke the last time, you took us through a meditation that was, I can tell you, it was very short, but it really affected me. It was beautiful. And I was wondering, would you mind maybe doing a really short one for our audience right now?
I can do that one, and it's called The River of Life, and I think it touches on that you mentioned earlier on, you know, on sinking into or into that part of our parents gave us life. Everything else that they gave us pretty much was extra.
Let's do
Instead of
it.
your Yes, absolutely. I'm
Yes.
happy to. Okay, so I personally like to be either sitting on the floor or laying down is fine too. But if I'm sitting on a chair, I like to have my feet flat on the ground. So if you want to do that, make sure you're not driving when you're listening to this one. Um, So we ground ourselves, we center ourselves, we take a deep breath. Inhale, exhale, we close our eyes and collect ourselves in our center. Inhale, exhale, and we see ourselves as children in front of our mother and father. We look at them with the devotion with which little children look at their parents, with eyes wide open and with incredibly deep love. The greatest surrender we had ever experienced was that look at our mother and father. Perhaps later something will have intervened, but now we return to that original love. We look at our parents and we see behind them their parents, and behind them at the same time our parents' parents, and behind them their parents, and the parents of this. In the end, we see infinitely many, so many generations behind them. Through all those generations, life came flowing to our parents and through them to us. It is the same life. All of those who have embraced it and passed it on have done it well. No one could have added something. No one could take something away. Life flows in its fullness through all of these generations. For our life, it makes no difference how each one was individually, if they were good or bad, prestigious or underestimated. In the service of life, all were equally good. Thus, life also came to my mother and father, and through them to me. We now open our hearts and souls to the fullness of life, just as it has come to us through our mother and father. We say to them, thank you. I take it from you. All of it. At the full price it has cost you and what it costs me. I hold life and I honor it. And I transmit it in its fullness. Whatever the circumstances in which I can and have the right to do so. We rely on our parents, from whom we have taken life. We look forward and pass it on. However, it may be to our own children, to our own grandchildren, to the many generations that will come after us. If we do not have children, we transmit life in another way, placing ourselves at the service of life. Life flows through us and flows its course. Precisely by flowing through one, we are united with it in the deepest way. Because like life, like love, it flows. And you can start coming back, start feeling into your body. Take a deep breath. Inhale, exhale, and at your pace and in your own time, when you're ready, you can begin opening your eyes.
That it was beautiful. Once again, that is such a special meditation. It really connects you with your ancestors and realize how much a part of you they are, and such gratefulness that what they have gone through for you to be able to be here, and it's just amazing. And we never think about all, we're always me, and we don't understand we are the product of all that has happened before us.
Oh, wow. Yes, it made me a little teary-eyed just listening to you because, yes, like we really have no idea everything they had to go through for
Yeah.
that life to keep continuing. And yes, there were, absolutely, there's no question about that. There was a lot of pain. But through all of that, life came to us. And there's another saying in Bert Hellinger, and I think I've heard it in other philosophies as well, which is no matter what the situation was, uh, we are made of love because God is love, and life is God, life is love. So no matter what the circumstances were of that, what do you call it? Of conception, no matter what the situations of our conception were, it was through love. And,
Mhm.
God is love. Life comes through God, universe, source, whatever we want to call it. And we're made of love, no matter what the circumstances were.
Life is amazing. That's all I can
Yes, it
say.
is.
So, Carla, what does a peaceful world look like to you?
What does a peaceful world look like to me? I think I strongly believe and know, I think, within the cells of my body that that has to start with oneself. So I cannot expect the world to show me peace if I don't vibrate in that peace within myself. It's like Rumi said, if you want to bring love into the world, or if you want to bring peace into the world, or whatever it is that you want to bring into the world, you need to begin with you. Mother Teresa said it too beautifully. If you want to bring love into the world, begin with your family. So again, begin with you. What you do within yourself is what you're going to see reflected outside. And yes, absolutely. If I place my attention in all the distortions that are going on in the world that are not in alignment with love, I'm going to tune into that and I'm going to start generating that. But where do I help the world mostly from? Do I help it by placing my attention and my energy in what's not going right and into that distortion? Or am I going to feed and nourish love and peace and care within myself so that I can, in consequence, radiate that towards others? So to me, peace within the world begins with us, and unity after that. I mean, or within that same context.
Yes. So the distortions that you were talking about, that sometimes we look outside of us and certain things trigger us, and not everything that's going on in the world will trigger us. There will be certain things. Those triggers probably are telling us what's going on inside of us, correct? So if I'm angry at someone being disrespectful, well, where am I being disrespectful, or am I respecting myself? That's where we need to look at. And then those triggers will not trigger me anymore once I have taken care of that. And of course, through family constellations, through so many other modalities, to me, I ask the universe, I need help here. Send me someone, please. And always something, a book or a song or somebody will come into my life who will help me understand what's going on. And that's the most brilliant thing, I think.
Yes, yes, we have so much help.
Yes.
When you ask, you receive. I mean, we might not be paying attention when we receive because we're too caught up in the story or in the conflict. But if we truly ask and we surrender, that's another beautiful tool. Surrender. I mean, it's unbelievable how much can change when we surrender to a higher power. Again, it doesn't matter what we call it, or to me, it's all the same. But when we can surrender and trust the process and ask for that guidance, like you mentioned, we're always being held and helped and sustained through the process.
We are, absolutely. This has been amazing, Carla. I would like to let everyone know, if you want to, if you're around McAllen in the South Texas area, Carla is going to be here at our center, Infinite Love Meditation Center, on Wednesday, 22nd, May 22nd. And she's going to talk about everything that we spoke about plus more, and maybe give us some samples, or we'll get our audience involved. And then on the 23rd, 24th, and perhaps the 25th, we are going to also offer sessions with groups or individual. So if you're interested, please just go to loveisinfinite.org, or in the information section of this session, there will be a link where you can go purchase the tickets. Also, Carla, would you like to let everyone know how they can contact you? I know you live in San Antonio, and if they happen to be around, I think you also do things online. So, would you like to let people know more about that and how they can contact you? And again, we will put all the information there for those who are interested.
Yes, my Facebook and Instagram are at I am love 411. Website is Karla-Sanchez.com. And I don't know if you want me to share my phone number. That's probably the easiest way to get in contact with me. So my phone number is 210-902-2646. And again, I do group sessions and I do individual sessions. Individual sessions are much easier to schedule because they are much more flexible for the client. Group sessions we schedule, and then whoever can make it or can make the time to attend is welcome to, but it's set on specific dates and times. Unlike the individual sessions, I work around, I work with the client's availability and my agenda's availability, so it's much more flexible.
Wonderful. And thank you again very much for coming here and talking to me about all of this and sharing this with our audience. I'm sure it opened people's eyes to know that there is something else out there they can work with. And I'm very excited to work with you when you come to McAllen with the Family Constellation. That's going to be another opening for me, another learning, another peel, another onion. How do you say, the onion peel coming off one
Yes,
by one?
the
No,
yes, another peel of that onion.
yes,
One more thing that I want to add
sure.
is participation is a wonderful option because, like you mentioned, we're going to have individual sessions available and we're going to have group sessions available. On the group session, there's an option for participation and there's an option for doing a constellation. People do need to reserve their spots if they want to have a constellation for themselves. And if people are still not sure because this is too, unknown, because they're not sure how it's going to work, they can always come to just participate. The many, if not all, of the people who participate receive so much just from participating. Even if it was not their actual or personal issue or conflict that is going to be worked on, everything that is worked on resonates with everyone in the group. So many times somebody comes and they feel like they've worked two or three things just by participating. So participating is a wonderful option to not only be of service, but also to receive a lot through the participation.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you very much. And we will see you soon.
Thank you, Saju.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
Quest for Peace, a podcast about navigating outer chaos with inner harmony. Whether you're seeking solace in the midst of life's challenges or simply curious about the profound connection between inner and outer peace, the Quest for Peace podcast is your guide on this transformative expedition.